Hi there, this is Matt Heffernan. Welcome back to my channel. If you caught the last few videos I've been posting, they're about this new game I'm creating, which is Alice in Wonderland for the Atari 2600. And what I'm got new today, it's not a new release. I haven't done a new release since the last one. But this is the introduction of sound, music and sound effects to the game. And I've got that implemented now for the first two levels. I may change the music at some point, but for right now I've got something in place that works, and I'm going to show you how I did it. But first, let's take a look at what it actually sounds like. So let me fire it up in the old emulator here, full screen it, and then we'll hear how it sounds. Alright, so that was it. Now you'll probably recognize at least the first bit of music in there. I'm going to go ahead and quit out of here. So let's take a look at what I did. So that first bit of music, of course, was Beautiful Dreamer by Stephen Foster. Nice public domain song, so I better not get a copyright strike. I've had copyright strikes for public domain music before that I've arranged myself, and it's comical to say the least. One was Jingle Bells, where I had some new wave DJ type person, whatever, try to say I stole that from him or whatever. That's not the case, and I was able to get that overturned, and hopefully I'll get the same with this. Anyway, to do sound with the Atari 2600, it's not quite like other systems where you have something more like a synthesizer chip or something very easily programmable. What you have is a very, very rudimentary sound wave generator, and it can either generate pure tones or different qualities of noise, and some of the noises are pitched, but in a lot of cases you just don't have a good coverage for your standard Western keyboard type instrument. So I was able to create some a nice little music library, just an include file that provides a bunch of macros. So we got these macros for initializing and looping, and just other things, just different values that you can use to really fill out what make a music composition work within assembly code and still be recognizable. And then including defining all the available pure tone notes. So these are non-noise notes from D sharp 3, which of course is this guy right here, all the way up to C7, which is right here. And you'll notice here on this keyboard I've got some red notes and some yellow notes. Now the yellow notes are available. You have something along the lines of those notes, but they are as noise and not as pure tones. And then the red notes, there are no available tones of any sort anywhere near those notes. And even the ones where I do have these notes available is like the black or white keys, they're not exactly exact. They're a little different because the way that the 2600 sound hardware within that television interface adapter, the TIA chip, is you have the sort of base frequency. It's a 5-bit value, and you're able to then have different control modes for that. There's a 4-bit control mode register, and so you have different modes are pure tones, and then some of those modes additionally have dividers against it. So you're starting at sort of the highest pitch is 30 kilohertz, and then you can divide that on down. And I created a nice little spreadsheet, which is right in the repository. Of course, you can go visit on GitHub this VCS Alice repository, and I have the spreadsheet right in there. And you'll see here I came up with approximations of settings for the 2600 that will cover different notes. And the white are the actual pure tones, and then there's everything else. And so like here you can see in these notes are yellow because it has this sort of lightly noisy versions of those notes, but then the red ones, there's just nothing close. So none of these different frequency settings and dividers get us any closer to this note than the note surrounding it. So we just can't play music that contains those notes, and that's kind of difficult because if we look back here, this is middle C right here, C4, and there's 2 notes in the octave above middle C that are entirely unavailable, which is not good, including, these are not just like obscure notes either. These are in a lot of popular keys, including C major, that are generally part of it. And of course F sharp is in a lot of keys also. But luckily I was able to find a version of Beautiful Dreamer that's in E flat major, which doesn't require either of these keys, and doesn't use either of them as accidentals either. So that worked out. And that's just part of the trials and tribulations of trying to create music. And anyway, so it really was, this chip was really more created for sound effects. So it has all those different characters of noise, and that makes it easy to create all these, bloopy, bloppy, crunchy different effects that you can have on there. And so within I create another include file that has additional macros for cueing and playing those sound effects. And in both cases, I defined a 4-byte entry for every time the tone changes. So it just goes through and sets the frequency, the control mode, the volume, and the duration. And let's take an actual quick look at this code. Oh, and by the way, I should have had this up before. Before I get into that, I just wanted to give a shout out to Zero Page Homebrew. They had actually previewed this past Friday, my Alice game. You can see they created this really nice little sort of imitation poster cart graphic based on my home screen and the first level, which I really like. I may steal that in the future once I do create a cart for it. And well, they're a really nice couple up in Vancouver. And of course, being on the West Coast, that means as it's an evening stream, and this was the first ever live Twitch I ever attended in person, or not in person, but at least online. And it's the very first time I actually logged onto a live stream on Twitch, and they are going pretty late here on the East Coast. It's 9 till midnight, and if you're in Europe, it's the middle of the night. But anyway, if you want, next Friday, go ahead and subscribe to them on Twitch, or just at least follow them. And I'll have the link to the YouTube video of the capture of that live stream where they reviewed this game. And they had some really nice things to say about it, as did a lot of the folks in the Twitch chat. And I was in the Twitch chat too. You'll see some of my live comments that were in there. But anyway, going back to the code, let's take a look here at this include file. So this, I created these include files to be just generally applicable. So if I were to create another game, I would just reuse these straight up. I try to keep them nice and lean and general, and this should work for most cases where I am not too horribly constrained on how I can define the playing of music. And I have a lot of constraints in level 1. There's really literally not a byte to spare in level 1 without removing even more detail. I had to take actually some detail out of the trees in the play field in order to fit the little bits of music and sound effects that I did. And I don't really want to sacrifice anymore, but I was able to make it fit. So anyway, you can see here the first macro I create. You can set a beats per minute tempo in there. If you set it to 100 beats per minute, which is what I do for this game, it makes it nice and easy. It has even divisions here. And you can see that this is based on those 60 hertz ticks. And so if a 16th note at 100 BPM would be 900, or rather 9 ticks, because it'd be 900 divided by 100, and so on. And so rather each measure of 100 beats per minute would be 144 ticks. So that's a real nice shorthand that you can use right there. And but you can also fill in little in-between values, as you'll see in the code here later. In fact, right here is the music. This is that Beautiful Dreamer in level 1. And you'll see in some cases I have like an 8th minus 5. Because in reality 8th is going to be 18, so 18 ticks, so I'm taking 5 ticks out and then doing a rest of 5 ticks, so that I can have, here you can see I hit the same note twice in a row. And we're dealing with a very basic sound generation. It doesn't have any sort of decay or anything, so it's, if you just played that note again, it would just sound like a solid tone playing for that 2 full quarter notes, and that's not helpful. So I just add that. It seems like 5 ticks is a good sort of like intra-note pause that seems to work with this sound generator, at least in Stella. I don't know how it sounds on the real hardware. Don't have real hardware at this point. So for right now, I think it seems that the fidelity of Stella is really spot on, because the folks over at Zero Page Homebrew, they played it on a real system with one of these flashable cartridges, and it worked exactly the same on that cartridge as it did on Stella. So I mean, hands off to the Stella folks, and really great job there. And anyway, so going back, I have another macro to set the music volume, so that basically each note is automatically going to be this sort of default volume, so you don't have to write the volume out for each note if you're just going to go the same. But you can always expand this out and not use the macros to really very specifically put in these volumes, like I do here for this sound effects, where I'm not using any macros. I'm just using just manual values for those 3 registers, and then the sustain time, the duration of those tones. And then I create this macro here for end music with the loop. So I created these music so that it could loop. Here you can see I have this end music, and it loops right back to the beginning. I'll just play those 2 little verses of Beautiful Dreamer over and over again. And but what you'll see in level 2, I do the same thing with that falling music, but then once you win, it only plays it once. Same thing as when you die, by having this silence at the end. And when I end the music, I just loop it back to the beginning of that silence. So it just plays the one time and then keeps going. And you could do this also with sort of an intro and then looping music if you so like. It makes it actually very similar to the VGM format, if you're familiar with that, especially if you've done any development with the XCI game engine, which you can see in some of my other videos. The VGM is the source format for the music in that game engine, and you can do the same sort of thing with looping. And so then what you need to be able to do is once you're starting to play music, you call init music, and then that will set up your pointers, and then you need to make sure that every frame you are calling play music exactly one time, and hopefully in a consistent part of the frame. Just calling it at some point haphazardly during the frame, just calling it at a consistent point. So like after a particular scan line, you're calling the play music macro each time, and then you're going to have nice metrically consistent music. And so it just takes up 2 scan lines, so you can do that during the vertical blanking or in the overscan, and it works out great. And then here I have these macros here for the rest. So for rest, it just shuts everything off for that duration. And then for all the different notes, those notes that are available, all those white and black keys, as you saw on the keyboard before on that slide. And then for sound effects, I have a very similar include file where basically you can just cue and play the effects, these 2 different macros. So you call start SFX when you want to start it, and then it points it to this effect. Generally, when you have a sound effect, you need to be able to have an initial resting point for it. And so just by having this stop SFX macro, which is really just placing this byte, a single byte in the code, and if once it sees the pointer for the sound effects pointer has that top bit set, we know that's not going to be a valid value, because this is the value that gets written to this odd F1 register, which is only the lower 5 bits are the only things that are writable. So that way we can just use that, say, oh, we see that high bit set where we can do that BPL on it, or BMI, and be able to say that, okay, yeah, this the sign bit is set, then we know we're no longer playing a sound effect. So you give that sort of this resting place to start, and then it goes through and plays, and then at the end it has an entry for 1 jiffy of silence as a placeholder, and then the stop, so that once it gets to the last tone in there, it'll rest on here on waiting to do this bit of silence, so that it finishes playing that, and then we'll go ahead and stop the sound effect. You can't do layering, because here you only have that one additional channel, channel 1. Channel 0 is just playing the music, so you only have channel 1 available to you for the sound effects, and that's all you get. So here you can see I created a sound effect for the when you get the umbrella. It's a little more involved than just the regular bonus. And then that death music, you can see here it made it more like a sound effect, but I just also, it was an easy way of just being able to shut off the falling music that would happen. You just start playing the death music, which is just these 3 notes, and they're using the noise, the generator, sort of a light amount of noise, and that gets you those 3 notes, bam, 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 and then it cuts to silence, and then just at that point you're just in silence until you hit the joystick button and restart the level, and then that's it. That's how you do sound effects and music in really any Atari 2600 game, and this is a method I came up with for using in my own game that I should be able to reuse for more games, because so far I'm really enjoying doing the 2600. I really enjoy interacting with the Atari community. They are very active and legion. The Atari Age bulletin board is extremely active, and it's very interesting that people still have a lot of passion for these old and basically obsolete systems, not just the 2600, but so many people into the 5200 and the 7800 and the 8-bit computers, and even the ST computers to a degree. It's interesting how little love the ST gets compared to the even older stuff. I think that may be indicative of the age of the people in there. Might have seen the ST as more of a work computer, or just obviously it was not as popular as the later ones. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you've enjoyed these last series of videos on this game. I've got more coming on its way. I got more updates to Cavi's Quest that's happening. So again, please subscribe to my channel. Click the little bell up here to get notifications. I am really getting close to 300 subscribers. That's a really cool milestone, and I thank all of my subscribers, and I hope you become one too, and keep joining me on this little journey. Keep watch the videos. Come visit my website. You can read the blog I got in there, slythegames.com. I'll have a blog entry for this video after it's done, and I hope you liked it. I will talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye.